The following live-streamed program is made possible by Atlanta Video Network, making your streams come true. It's time once again for another edition of Talk to Me. And now, here's Emmy himself, 8-time Emmy Award-winning journalist, Maynard Eaton.
Hello again, my friends. I'm Maynard Eaton, and this is Talk to Me, a weekly conversation with influencers in the arts, education, politics. And this week, I have a gentleman who's an activist, artist, a publisher, and a good friend. Please welcome today's show, Mr. Okeeba Jubalo. Okeeba, thank you for joining me.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Eaton.
Okeeba, as you well know, as a parent of 2 daughters and a son, what's happened this past 10 days must be disturbing. An unprecedented eruption of violence and protest based on the shootings of Greg Floyd. How are you handling this as a father?
It's one of those things where, as a father, I've really trained my daughters to understand what America is, why America is, and why Atlanta is what it is. Because I think it's one of those things where we look at a national problem, that's one thing. But then when we look at the impact that it has on us as a community on a local level, then that's a different thing. So as a father, you know, it's frustrating, beyond frustrating, but my girls have always heard this message. They've seen it, so they're not new to it. You know what I mean?
We always call, I'm just on a conference call with some local Atlanta ministers, and they said, they always refer to the Atlanta way. I said that was PR, public relations, puff. Your thoughts? Is there an Atlanta way? Has that been disruptive? Has that been upset this week?
Yeah, I think the Atlanta way that they speak about it's a dated way that doesn't apply to what's going on right now. And they're feeling the weight of that, where basically what you have is this 1960s playbook that does not apply to 2020, because this younger generation doesn't respect the same things that my parents respected. You know what I mean? So it doesn't connect to the reality of the situation. That's why they're creating 2 separate movements, the same way they did in the 60s.
Well, isn't this a tale of 2 cities, really? Hasn't it always been? There's always been the black upper class, some degree of middle class, but always poor folks. Oh, yeah. Isn't that still much the same?
Oh, yeah, it's night and day. I mean, you would think what they're trying to do, or what they're doing actually, is they're manufacturing leaders here in Atlanta. So when you look at those within the city council, you look at those within certain whether it's Killer Mike or T.I., what they're doing is they're trying to manufacture these leaders that really do not connect with the reality of the poor folks. It's like there's a bridge between the two. And on one side, you have the bourgeois Negroes. And then on the other side, you have the day-to-day black folks. And there's a total disconnect.
Is Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms making a difference? Is he getting the word out that makes a difference? And why Killer Mike? Why has he become such a star all of a sudden?
Well, to answer the first part about Mayor Bottoms, she is a figurehead who pretty much, you know, she came about, she has a problem on her hands, right? And she received that problem from all the generations before her. You know, so she pretty much represents an idea, but it's not the reality. You know, so when you say, hey, don't burn our communities, black folks in Atlanta don't even live here or own anything. So who are they talking to? So even when you look at that press conference that they had a press conference for their handlers. They didn't have a press conference for the folks who were outside, because the folks who were outside were outside. So she was talking to primarily.
They were watching. Yeah.
They weren't watching.
They were watching.
Yeah. And my thing is, if you're a leader, then go outside amongst the people. You know what I'm saying? Like take it outside. Why are you, stashed away in this office space doing a press conference away from the people? If you lead the people, then go amongst the people. So the same thing with Killer Mike. Killer Mike, I know Killer Mike. Well, I won't say we're good friends. I'm not going to paint that picture, but I know the struggle that he's in. Because a part of it, if you looked at the press conference, you'll see on his T-shirt it said "Kill the Masters," right? But he's trying to convince you to go home. You know what I mean? At the same time, you can't serve two gods. You can't be about revolution and then squeezing it in a bottle like that. So the same thing with T.I. You know what I'm saying? They're figureheads, but they're disconnected from the realities that so many people are living within our community.
Does it say something about Atlanta that the people we put up front are rap artists?
It says that the people who we put up front are celebrities. You know what I mean? So what happens is, if you look at it across the board with what they're doing with what's his name, Antonio Brown. You look at Antonio Brown. You look at T.I. You look at Killer Mike. You look at any of these so-called young figureheads. They're celebrities. So Atlanta's biggest problem, one of the big problems in Atlanta, is that Atlanta chooses to chase celebrity over credibility, and they choose titles over talent. So when you have a real situation like what we have right now, this requires real people. It doesn't require celebrities and titles, because that's not in your refrigerator and that's not in your bank account. So you're not going to be able to relate to those people or us. You're not going to relate to us.
As you know, one of the things I do is work as the communications director for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference on Auburn Avenue. Has that era bypassed us? Has the civil rights movement as we've known it or heard about it or read about it failed this generation? They're not listening, are they?
Hands down. There's been a disconnect over the last 35 years of affirmative action and everybody getting what they're getting and running to the hills. There's been a huge disconnect. And it's also one of those things where, like Dr. Steele, I appreciate what he does, but there needs to be another version, a younger version, in addition to him, to transition the message into that sector. You know what I mean? So it's like my mother going out there. My mother's 74. So if my mom went out there, they would just see an elderly black woman. You know what I mean? But if I go out there with my mother and we're exchanging words back and forth to the public, then the public's able to hear us in a different way in comparison to just my mom being out there. So the SCLC has kind of missed that bridge between the two, and that's needed.
You're an activist in your own way, and some of your writing as a publisher of YBE magazine, in your artistry. But now this activism might turn into political candidacy. I heard that you may be running for office, sir.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of the priorities in my life has been my two daughters, right? And my youngest daughter just recently graduated from high school last week. So before I said certain things and did certain things, I made it a point to make sure that I got her to where she needed to be. So both girls are finished with high school. Both girls are accepted into universities. Now I can focus on saying exactly what needs to be said and doing exactly what needs to be done, because I understand there's a certain level of we can call it danger. There's a certain level of risk that goes into saying what you need to say for the people. It's one thing if I'm feeding the people poison, you know what I'm saying? But if I'm feeding them poison, then I'll be a multi-billionaire. But if I'm going to tell the truth and stand on that, then there's a certain level of risk that comes with that.
Does the truth win in politics? Or is it much of a show and money that puts somebody in office, particularly in a top office like the mayor? Can you tell the truth and win?
No, you can tell the truth and attract other people who are really, really wanting the truth. You know what I mean? You can do that. But the politics in itself, it's like left wing, right wing. It's the same bird. So whether or not you're a Democrat, whether or not you're a Republican, it really doesn't matter in the scope of what's really needed for black people and also for poor people. It really doesn't matter which one you're claiming, because if you look at the origin of the Democratic Party, those were Klansmen. You know what I mean? So it's not as if something changed in a different way. So it's definitely one of those things where it's impossible to tell the full truth if you're amongst the team. But my thing would be to tell the whole truth and to be honest about what it is and give people an alternative to hearing somebody different. And I've done the work to prove exactly where I stand. I've done the work. I'm still doing the work. You know, I don't post everything and take pictures. And it's kind of funny but sad. This whole situation has turned into like a photo op orgy because everybody's trying to stage the photos to make it look like they're doing something more than what they do on the regular in the community.
You've been producing a series of commentaries on politics. What have you been trying to say? A series of 3 or 4 different series of commentaries, videos that have been pointed, political, and serious. What are you saying?
Primarily, it's like giving you the alternative to what everybody else is hearing. Because the problem is with Atlanta, like I said, they love celebrity over credibility. And I'm extremely credible in our community. Like, regardless of the sector that you go in, you may not like what I say, but everyone who's within my circle, they know if I say it, I back it up. You know what I mean? So that's the difficulty of coming against me, is that anything that I say, I back it up and I have receipts. You know, so the videos that I've been releasing through my Young Black Entrepreneur platform are the same things that I've been saying over the last 20 years. It's just that now people can hear it because of the, because of the economy, because of the virus. And now you have to focus on the reality that you're living instead of having these ongoing distractions that were once available to you that, aren't available to you now. So now you have to focus.
Okay, but politics aside, and I know that's a passion for you now, your lifeblood, who you are, what you do, is an artist, a successful artist. Correct. Are you an angry artist now?
I'm the same art. The funny thing about it is that I'm the exact same artist that I've always been. It's just that those around me are now angry or aware. You know what I mean? So now it's like my message makes more sense to so many others now because they finally see what I've been looking at for the last 3 decades, or actually 4.5 decades life, but as a professional artist for the last 3 decades. Now they can see it.
And you're well collected. I mean, you're popular. People buy your work, spend big money for your work. What's the message in your art? Is there something, a theme, something you're expressing directly with what you create?
Yeah, it's definitely like when looking at my work, it's like one of those things where it's really speaks to the African American experience in a really transparent and honest way. Because what ends up happening is when a majority of Black artists get to a certain space, they have to pander and they have to play a certain game to play Black. Because you don't want to offend your white supporters, because unfortunately, once you get to a certain level, a majority of people collecting your work aren't Black people. That's unfortunate. Like you get to a certain space and you go to a gallery opening and you see all white folks. You know what I mean? So there's a thin line. And then if you have a gallery owner who appreciates your message, but they appreciate the money more than your message, they want to kind of curve you in a certain way to create a certain amount of work or a certain level of work that doesn't offend people.
Try to tame you down a bit, huh?
Oh, yeah, they want to water down the Kool-Aid. Is exactly what they want to do.
What about your fellow artists? I mean, you're kind of a leader of the Black artist community here. I'm told from you and others that many artists, Black in particular, people of color artists, are suffering, having a tough time surviving.
Right. It's one of those things where I would say it's like my goal was never to become a quote unquote leader in the Black art scene. It's just I don't have a problem being honest and saying what needs to be said. And a majority of them are afraid to say the truth. You know what I'm saying? Like what I'm saying is what a majority of them feel, but they're afraid of saying it because they don't want to be blackballed by the city of Atlanta. They don't want to be blackballed by one gallery or another gallery. And for me, it's like you have to tell the truth. That's the nature and the essence of being a Black artist, especially if you have any type of message about you, is that you have to tell the truth. But
if you have any integrity too, right?
Yeah, you have to have integrity. You have to. You know, and for me at least, you have to.
Right.
So like I said, there are people who don't like what I say, but they can never say that I'm lying. And that's the problem. So on the other end of their opinion are my receipts. You know what I mean? So it's like when you look at these artists are struggling because they were struggling before all this even happened. So imagine that. You're in a situation where tax dollars are being collected, donations are being collected, and you still are struggling because those receiving the tax dollars, those receiving the donations are not doing what they need to do in order for you to thrive and survive as an artist. So then you put that in this situation and it's lights out. Unless the government, local government gets involved, Camille Love, basically tax dollars in Atlanta, you know, with the, unless they get involved with new leadership involved. Let me add that part. Right. If they get involved with new leadership involved or new creative ideas involved, then Atlanta has the opportunity to really survive. Otherwise, it's a wash.
Okay, but now wait a minute. I've been here 40 years or more. This is supposedly, according to many pundits and politicians, the Black Mecca. Well, if there's that much money here, that much political influence here, aren't Black folks, Black elite, buying Black art?
No, Black elite are buying Black prints in frames that you can pick up from Marshalls. You can pick up from any of these retail locations. You know, they're not supporting the arts like that. They may do like a donation to somebody like the National Black Arts Festival to show up at the galas and show up at the fashion shows and look pretty in a nice suit and a nice gown. But they're not supporting the arts because they're trusting these organizations to do what they're supposed to do for the artists. And those organizations aren't doing it.
So who are the arts aficionados? Who are your clients and customers? How does somebody thrive or survive as a polished artist?
In Atlanta or just in general?
In Atlanta, primarily. We're talking about Atlanta now, but or is there a difference? There's a difference between the two then, I guess, huh?
Yeah. I mean, how you won't survive in Atlanta unless you diversify your income in regards to being in that creative space. As far as like 12 months out of the year selling artwork in Atlanta, that's not going to happen unless you diversify your price points and your products. You know, and the majority of artists don't. You know what I'm saying? What they do is they make a painting, they make a T-shirt. They make a painting, they make a T-shirt, and they wait on somebody to die or get killed so they can make a painting of the person who died. And then hopefully that creates some kind of popularity surge for them and everything. So Atlanta's like it's a terrible market. You know what I'm saying? Because like those who are in charge of creating financial opportunities for artists, and that's of all ethnic groups. So it's not even just like Black artists. It's just like when you look at white, Black, green, yellow, nobody's monitoring or managing the store in regards to helping artists monetize that process. So it's a mess, you know, so you don't really survive in Atlanta. You have to get out of here, to be honest with you.
The tragic murders of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, Brenda Taylor, Breonna Taylor, those tragic murders have spawned art. Photos, you see it in a protest. Is that popularizing art, or is that the struggle of artists to have to do something to get attention?
It's the second. You know what I'm saying? Artists having to do something to get attention. So artists have become ambulance and hearse chasers is what it is. Wow. So you wait on somebody else to get killed, somebody else to die, and then you create this image and you hope that it goes viral to the point where it creates enough popularity for you. So then from that point, then hopefully you can get enough sales. But it's one of those things where that tends to not be the case as far as getting sales. You'll get a trickle down and you'll get popularity, in which hopefully they can monetize that. But a lot of times you don't monetize it. You just get a bunch of likes and a bunch of views, and then it fades off until the next person is killed.
What do you think about the George Floyd portrait that was been popularized at the site where he was murdered? That's gone everywhere around. Is that a major piece of art, you think, or what?
I think it's a major mural. You know what I'm saying? Because of the context in which it was created. You know what I'm saying? But it's like there's so many amazing artists here in Atlanta and beyond, just in general, in regards to making murals and that whole deal. But there's a difference between the mural game and the gallery game and the museum game. Those are two different things. So it's like, let's say LeBron James playing in the NBA versus an amazing ball player playing down at the YMCA. Those are two totally different things. So I'm not saying the person who created the mural isn't amazing, but that person 9 times out of 10 won't end up in a museum or a high-level gallery. You know what I'm saying? Because of how the system is structured.
And Okeeba Jubalo's a gallery artist? Is that your world?
I would say, yeah. I'm definitely not. I won't say I'm not a mural artist, and that's by choice. But I'm definitely gallery, museum level, because it's like, it was one of those things where, well, I don't want to use the word level. I'll say direction, because It's just like you have to consciously make a choice to go in a certain direction. And if you don't go in that direction, then you can end up being stuck in this other space.
How does one characterize the type of art that you do? You're a what artist? Is there a name to the kind of work that you do and create?
I would say it depends on who you're speaking to. There's, I would say I am the closest thing to Gordon Parks that America has to offer. In regards to the diversified approaches, whether it's film, whether it's music, whether it's fine art, whether it's photography, whether it's poetry, whether it's music. I'm like Gordon Parks on steroids, but way more committed to that.
You do it all, don't you? I mean, I've heard you play, perform, and you're also a magazine publisher. YBE
Right.
Magazine.
I'm Gordon Parks on steroids. Like I'm what happens when a black boy has Gordon Parks for a reference, and then you see that, but you also have different references available to you to realize the importance of media, the importance of controlling the image and the word. So when I control the image and the word through Young Black Entrepreneur Magazine, that allows for me to say what we need to say, speak to who we need to speak to, without being held to waiting on somebody else to say my story is worthy.
Also, you would come up with a novel idea, novel way of selling it, or you're producing your magazine. Many magazines are going out of business. Newspapers are going out of business. You're thriving. How have you changed that curve?
It's getting away from the physical copies, because just like right now, you're where you are, I am where I am, but we're moving in a digital space. So my whole thing is to make the magazine move in a digital space, and also make it to the point where a majority of people are consuming their media for free and everything. So my thing is, okay, I'll give it to you for free, because what it is it's like a PR release. Every time I release out an issue or a newsletter, then that's like a PR release and everything. So that's why I'm constantly using social media, using my email list, using my newsletters in order to push it where I need to push it and keep my message relevant. So a lot of the magazines who rely on printing, that's not the way to go. Because the majority of people don't even buy magazines when you go in a grocery store. They just kind of look at them while they're waiting in line, and they put them up, and then they walk out the door.
Finally, where are we right now, Okeeba, with all that's going on past 10 days, George Floyd, all these other police killings? Has life changed? Has Black America changed? Are we at a crossroads now? What's your summation of where we sit right now and where we're going from here?
I'll say right now we're at this place where the old guards are trying to impose their old views, and the new group simply they ain't going for it. You know what I mean? Because at one point in time in the 60s and 70s, we had to rely on ABC, CBS, NBC. Now we don't. You know what I mean? So this young group can get the message out just faster than anything the 60s and 70s have ever seen. So where we are right now is really in a shift in how we have a revolution. We're in a shift of what's important to us. And this has been really like a perfect storm, because what you have is like, you have the Black problem, but then you have this economic problem, then you have this Trump problem. Now, this Trump problem is allowing for even white people because you're going to have to pick. You know what I'm saying? It's like either you're with Trump or you're not. And if you aren't, and which it seems like there's so many white folks who aren't, is just Trump has a bigger blowhorn than everybody else. Right. So the microphone, you know what I'm saying? But his microphone can be drowned out by action. And I'll say this right here, like his threats about calling the military, you know what I'm saying, getting the military here and there isn't enough military to spread out across America. That's the truth. If you look at the numbers, so a majority of people can see it and be like, oh man, they would have, you know, the Marines and the Army and the Navy right there on the Atlantic. America is overextended. So there's no possible way you can stretch across 50 states and have your American military rolling through, but they're bluffing. It's like playing poker is what they're doing. He's bluffing. You know what I mean? There's no possible way. That's why you have these police taking this approach of kneeling. They're kneeling because they're trying to do this reverse psychology game and playing on the idea of Christianity and not realizing this younger group, they don't care nothing about that. Nothing about it.
But there are those who suggest, good point there, those who suggest that Martin Luther King and many of the civil rights heroes were in their 20s when they started their civil rights activities, but they were strategizing. They weren't just willy-nilly. There are others of my ilk who say, well, maybe young people have a voice and have an anger and a passion, but maybe they're not thinking it through. Isn't there something to be said about strategizing?
Yeah, I mean, it is, but at the same time, it's like when your refrigerator is empty and you don't have any money in your bank account, strategies are reserved for the bourgeoisie Negroes. You know what I'm saying? That's a luxury that you have. MLK, his dad was what, a reverend here, preacher here in Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? So you're collecting money every Sunday. So you have the luxury of saying, hey, let's sit here. Because you look in your refrigerator, everything that you need is there. This other generation doesn't have what they need. So they're not in, and also they had the point of reference of how the 60s and 70s failed us. So they're not interested in any of that. They want actions right here, right now, immediately. You know, we have this microwave society where it's primarily you want it right here, right now. You don't want to sit here and say, hey, let's go sit down and think about it. We don't need to think about anything. Shit, I need 3 meals, 3 hots, and a cot. So I'm not interested in sitting around and thinking about it. I want to move, go grab some groceries, some steaks out of wherever I'm going to go ahead and get it from. And then I'm going to roll from there. We can think about it when I have this stomach in my house. And I mean, when I have my stomach in order. You know what I mean? And that's the part that's working against it.
Where do you go from here, briefly?
I would say briefly, I am definitely looking at what does it look like if Okeeba Jubalo runs for mayor of Atlanta? What does that look like in 2021? You know, if I focus my energy, my resources, my connections, my truth, my honesty, what does that look like if I give the people of Atlanta an alternative to hearing something else? What does that really, really look like? And I know some people would say, oh, Okeeba, you crazy, man. That's not going to work. You know what I'm saying? But honestly, everything that I've ever set my mind to, I always get it accomplished. And I understand the game of politics, but what does it look like if I get on a larger platform, a larger worldwide platform? Because if I run for mayor of Atlanta, then I'm on a worldwide platform, which means entrepreneurship, the importance of the arts, gentrification, education. And one last point, I know we say quickly, one last point, how is it possible for us to have so many educated Black folks in Atlanta and you cannot put your child on one school bus to receive a decent education in Atlanta because of the piss poor school system that APS has? How is that possible? So what happens if I say that publicly and if I'm in a debate with Mayor Bottoms? Because I'm like I said, my receipts are in order. So if I ask you these questions and if we're talking about these things, am I as pretty as her? No. Am I as light as her? No. Am I as credible as her? I'm more credible than her, to be honest with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining Talk to Me. You may have just heard from the next mayor of Atlanta. And before we leave you, though, we want to show you a story we did, Rick Clear and myself, with this young man in his art exhibit. Okeeba, thank you so much. We've learned a lot. Look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail.
Yeah, we'll see.
This is the 30th anniversary of the National Black Arts Festival, but you could call this its comeback performance. Black artists showcased in a black-owned gallery during Black History Month and Super Bowl weekend in Atlanta.
NBAF lost its way, and with Okeeba involved in it, we're going to get there.
And get where?
Get to the top of the food chain.
In terms of being recognized again?
Yeah.
Being respected again?
Having the brand NBAF move forward into where it's supposed to be, because every artist that's in here represents Atlanta. Everybody's from a different place, but we're working here in Atlanta, so it's letting the world know that this is the kind of talent that we have, and it's also helping NBAF get behind this talent.
Jubalo is helping Executive Director Vicky Morrow rebrand, refresh, and reintroduce the National Black Arts Festival. He vows it's a new day and a new way for the commercialization of black artists. Exhibition. What are you saying about Atlanta, black art, and the National Black Arts Festival?
I say with Atlanta has the best talent anyway, excluding nobody. NBAF is opening the doors now and seeing like the talent that we have right here and really getting behind, and that's my role, bridging that gap.
The exhibition was entitled Our Home, Our Artists, Our Legacy. The September Grade Fine Arts Gallery hosted the event.
It says what's meaningful to me. We're recognizing our own Atlanta artists, which is, I think, important. We have people here from all over the world for Super Bowl, but there's another part of Atlanta. There's the arts part, the part that makes Atlanta what it is, the creative part, the creative energy. So we have to acknowledge the creative energy, and that's what I'm about, recognizing who we have in Atlanta, the talent that's here, and the talent that's worth investing in and recognizing and giving them the visibility. So that's what I'm about. I'm about the artists and giving them that opportunity to be seen while we have this audience from all over the world, understanding that Atlanta has great talent.
Perhaps the most notable artist in the exhibition is Steve Allen. His work is on display in the founding and permanent collection at the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture.
With again, the caliber of artists that are here, and that's why I like them concentrating on the artists involved in the show. Getting out that all of them located here in Atlanta, not local artists. We live in Atlanta, but we're doing work.
Your work is around the world.
And so to be able to work with each other, for people to see each other's work compared to, well, not compared, I don't like to compare, each one's is unique. But again, I consider it an honor to be here. And it's really like an introduction to Atlanta.
Steve Allen is an internationally known artist. He says this event, this exhibit, puts the National Black Arts Festival back on the map. It's a new day for Atlanta, a new day for black art on a Super Bowl weekend. I'm Maynard Eaton for the Atlanta Video Network.